sounds. You can see my airbag exploded car here in the background. We are doing an impromptu live stream because I wanted to try to see if I could do different types of content, like answering comments and questions without the algorithm getting upset or you guys getting upset. I think you guys might enjoy it, but sometimes I'm on the fence about whether the algorithm will like it, and I shouldn't be thinking that. I should just make what I want to make. So that's what I'm doing today. I want to answer your questions publicly, and let's get, because it gives me more time to get more in depth with the questions. So let's get started. First, we have. Let me see if I can do this. Can I swap cameras here? Yeah, we can do that. All right. First up, we got Doubting Tom for guitar only, and this is the Death by Audio video. He's saying, for guitar only, no such special sounds from hardware analog polysynth after just installing. Interested in guitarists only? More info post required. So it looks like he plugged it into a analog poly synthesizer and it didn't sound very good. Unfortunately, Doubting Tom, you are correct to doubt, at least in this case, because yes, a lot of this hardware is made for guitar for one reason only: money. I hate to say it, but that's really what it's all about, what it comes down to. It comes down to financial incentive. There's more guitar players than there are synthesizer players that are using guitar pedals. Now, that's not to say that there aren't guitar pedal users in the synth world, but the frequency spectrum for a guitar pedal is the reason it's called a guitar pedal is because it's tuned for a guitar. A lot of times you can't even use a bass guitar on a guitar pedal. I know JHS is a little different. They actually make a lot of their pedals where you can use them in the bass spectrum and it'll work just fine. But most of the time that's not the case. In fact, I know a lot of bass players are not too happy that there's not a bass whammy DT pedal. So yeah, if a guitar pedal is used on a different instrument other than a guitar, it's going to sound funky and it's not going to give you the results that you expect. So that's something to keep in mind. Next up, we got Mark Harwood. Mine arrived today. He's talking about the Strymon Cloudburst. The boards can have a bit of a rest. This unit can do the next gig on its own. I think he's saying that this pedal is so versatile that it can do a lot. And by a lot, I think it's replacing a lot of his other pedals that he would use, which is pretty interesting. Next up, we got Sharp Edge Standard Official. Awesome demo, probably best I've seen. I like that we can see the settings. I want one so bad, but 2100? Phew. He's talking about the Benson Echo Rec. And yeah, the price is pretty expensive, but if you watch the interview on that, you'll understand exactly why. It's a completely analog system, and it's a pretty interesting the way that it works and the way it was replicated. It's not exactly sounding as good as the originals, but it definitely sounds a lot better than something like a Strymon Volante, which is trying to imitate the same thing. So you should be comparing the Strymon Volante to this, which again, the Strymon Volante is what, $500 or $600. So still 1/4 the price, but this is also 1/4 the price of a vintage unit. So you're right in between the price of a Volante and a vintage unit, and you be the judge on whether that price and whether that quality is worth it to you. It really comes down to, is it worth it to you? Next up, we've got Barry Allen commenting on the price as well. Way too overpriced in my opinion. At best, worth $800, not $2K. Seems T-Rex is after the wealthy guitarist. I mean, yeah, you're right. They are after the wealthy guitarist. I think that's okay, though. There's nothing wrong with that. If they're after somebody who can afford a vintage unit or is looking into vintage units, then they're after the wealthy guitarist, because nobody can afford a vintage unit that's not wealthy. 2K, I guess T-Rex, they basically saying the same thing. This person is making an angry face at the Lizard Queen demo, guessing because he doesn't like the tone of the Lizard Queen. And Octave Fuzz is pretty divisive, but that's to me, that's just an octave fuzz. That's not because there's anything bad with the playing. Somebody said in another language, I translated it, and it says, I put these videos on to go to sleep. and it was the Strymon Cloudburst and my SY200 video. So I'm happy to have put somebody to sleep with that video. It was soothing. Or maybe I'm just a very boring presenter. Convex Effects says, I want to emulate jazz bass sounds. Do you think this will do, or should I go with the EHX Bass 9? Now he's referring to the SY200 there. I think the EHX Bass 9 is going to do bass sounds better than the SY200. And here's why. The SY200's bass sounds are only as good as the effects you put after them, whereas the EHX Bass 9 actually sounds pretty good on its own. I don't know about the tracking. I haven't tried the EHX Bass 9 myself. I'm only comparing the sounds. Based on the sounds to my ears, the EHX Bass 9 is going to be a better overall bass tone than the SY200. Unless you really like the bass tone that I achieved in these videos or in some of my shorts. But again, the shorts, I think I just used some of the tones from these videos. So if you want to check out those videos, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about there. This person referring to the SY200 Forgotten Music says, it sounds a bit muffled and cheap synth. Maybe EQ could do a good job on it. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to need, in my opinion, an EQ or other pedals. I've said this about the SY1. You need to combine it with other pedals to get the full potential of it. And you're going to want to combine this SY200 with other pedals, especially in EQ, to get the most of it. Let's see. Neve here says, it's a great phaser. Holy shit. Definitely on my wish list. Yeah, I thought the phaser function was one of the most normal sounding portions of it. I know Death by Audio does kind of crazy sounds, but I appreciate the more normal sounds on their pedals, and the phaser was definitely a much more normal sound than their other sounds, at least we could say. Okay, we have the Washington Monument. What is this? AMB? Does that stand for ambience? He says, what I'm hearing is that this is generation... Oh, I remember I was confused by this comment. But he was saying that he digs it. The Washington Monument says, what I'm hearing is that this is generation loss, but for faulty power supplies and frayed patch instead of tape. I dig it. He's referring to the Death by Audio disturbance there. And yeah, it's definitely a very decayed kind of sound. It's very broken, almost like Bit Crushy, but when I say Bit Crushy, I don't mean that it sounds like a Bit Crusher. I just mean that in that same vein of trying to destroy the sound on purpose and make it sound good in the destruction. I think that's what Death by Audio does best. That's what it's in their name. They destroy the audio, but it sounds good though when they do it. Rick Everglade says, your guitar sound was beautiful. He's referring to the Benson Echo Rec video. What effects did you have in front of the Echo Rec? There were none. Maybe a preamp? Nope, no preamp. Was the T-Rex Echoes preamp at all like the wildly loved Benson preamp? Yeah, it definitely sounds pretty good. It doesn't sound as good because it's not... I don't know why it doesn't sound as good. Maybe the tape drum is not as large. I just don't know. When the pedal is off, does its preamp still affect the output? That I do not know. I don't even know if it's true bypass. I apologize on that one. I don't know. Would like to know good answers for the preamp question before thinking about a $2,100 investment. Fair question. You know, if that thing has a preamp function where you can adjust it and make sure that the preamp is on, then it's definitely going to add to it because you could use it for multiple functions. But if it doesn't have a preamp, I could understand somebody being like, you know what, I don't want to pay this much money for something that doesn't have dual function. Fair enough. Fair point. Next up we have Mr. JD. Great live demo. Oh, he's referring to the busking pedals and full setup played live. Great live and demo of equipment you use. How are you using the Digitech element in the pedal chain? The sound is amazing. He's actually referring to this very crappy Digitech multi-effect unit that I was using at the time for this demo. It's not something I used. It's since been replaced with a Dunlop Crybaby Junior, I believe it's called. It's medium-sized. I think the Crybaby Mini is the smallest one, and the Crybaby Junior is the medium-sized one. I prefer the medium-sized one. But I might even replace that, as I'm not really liking how it's playing with the Cube EX. So that video actually did very well, surprisingly well. I'll have to do more demos on my busking setup, as people were asking a lot of questions about that. Um, this person was asking about the GR55, or no, the best Boss SY1000. Does it have piano sounds? And I've answered this question 1,000 times, but I'll answer it again. The SY1000 is not for replicating other instruments. I'll say it again. The SY1000 is not for replicating other instruments. Can it do other instruments? Yeah, but only in the same way that a synthesizer can. It can emulate like a flute or a fake trumpet, but it's not a real trumpet sound. It's like a synthesizer trying to emulate a trumpet. What it does best, in my opinion, is the kind of resonant synth sounds. What are they called? Oscillating synthesizers. The oscillating synth in the SY1000 is what it does best. The wave-based synthesis is different than the PCM-based synthesis. PCM-based synthesis is creating and triggering a sound. That is what That's what the piano thing does in the GR55. It's triggering a sound effect. But for the SY1000, it is wave-based synthesis. What that is actual sound creation. It's actually creating noise, creating sound, but it's being triggered by your guitar and the tonality of your guitar. And by tonality, I mean it's actually listening to the treble and everything. So it's converting it, but it's also creating its own new sound, if that makes sense. Completely different type of synthesis. Not, I think it's a better technology if it could continue to improve. It might even be able to replicate a grand piano. But for now, no. That's not what it's for. The GR55 is for replicating grand piano sounds and saxophone and trumpet and all that stuff. You're going to want the GR55. Even though it's old and ancient by this point, it's still the best way to do that. All right, next up we have Truth Finder says, the sound better standalone. Sorry, the stacked up effects is overkill. Sorry, I can see reverb, but the rest, the SY200, already has the other sounds that the other pedals do. No, incorrect, sir. The SY200 is not the SY1000. It does not have any onboard effects at all. And I mean at all. There's not even a single reverb in the SY200. While there are tones in the SY200 that sound like they're reverby, there is no actual effect inside the SY200. And that's not me just saying, hey, you're wrong. I actually responded to him and was saying, this is probably what you're thinking of, the SY1000. Because the SY1000 is basically the GT1000. But it's the same platform. Like, it has all the effects that has in it, minus some. I don't know what percentage are missing, but it has most of that. And all the Cosm modeling and all that stuff is in there as well. Alright, and I don't agree that the sound stacking is overkill. I like combining a lot of effects with the synthesizer, as that's how you're going to use it. If you want to hear these pedals by themselves, don't listen to Gear Sounds. That's me being harsh, but Gear Sounds is a channel about combining pedals. That's exactly what we do. That is what we do here on Gear Sounds. So if you don't want to hear other pedals combined, this is not the channel that you're going to enjoy listening to, because I'm going to combine as many sounds and as many pedals as I can, because I want you to know what it's going to sound like in your rig. Alright, let's see. Basilandrigsby. Sorry if I got your name wrong. He's commenting on the Benson Echo Rec. Thanks for the vid. It's so difficult to judge sound when you've got to compete with NAMM noise. I'm guessing the modulation is partly due to the expression pedal being plugged in. I own the replicator, and the expression pedal drives it crazy. Love T-Rex stuff, though, so I'm going to go for the Benson. And somebody asked, why is there so much modulation? So there was so much modulation because I was actually using the expression pedal to create the modulation. In hindsight, I should have recorded more time without the expression pedal, because it wasn't very clear what was happening. I did put on text on the screen, hey, I'm using an expression pedal, but it was for only a few seconds, and I don't think a lot of people saw that. And it was also only when the modulation was the most extreme, so it was not very clear that that's what was creating it. But that modulation is not undesirable in my opinion, but when I was listening to demos of the original unit, it really creates a completely different tonality that I wouldn't consider is a Benson Echo Rec replica sound. As far as the NAM noise, I wasn't competing with the NAM noise. I had a microphone directly on the amplifier. And maybe he's referring to the interview. I wasn't sure there. This one, Affect Your Effect, also commenting on the Benson Echo Rec, says, this is interesting, but you and anyone that watches should know what a real modern Benson Echo Rec sounds like. Note how stable the repeats are in my demonstration. There are many key components to achieve high fidelity repeats and syncopated patterns. Take care. You guys should go and check this video out. Go to this video and then go to the comment section and then click on this video. You're going to hear an insane tone. Absolutely great recording by Affect Your Effect. I loved it. And he was right. At first I'm like, oh, this guy's being pretentious. No, it actually sounds amazing. And I really did enjoy the tones on the classic Echo Rec. You really can't compete with the classics. I mean, it was so good. I hate to be that guy, but it was so good. Sometimes it is just better. And it was like, not just twice as good. It was just way better. EHX commented on the Lizard Queen saying, Lizard Queen emoji. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for my first live stream answering your questions and comments. Just an experiment. We'll see how it does. We'll see what the algorithm thinks of me. We'll see what you guys think of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just a little something different for now. I've been dealing with a lot lately. That's why I missed last week's video, but I will be coming out with another NAMM video for you guys on Sunday. Every Sunday, we're not going to miss videos. That was just a tough time. So I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.